Hello to all the new viewers out there that have come over from Amy Louise. You may be wondering who the person actually is in this video. Well, my name's Amy Louise and I'm the co-founder and president of Prac-E. But what is Prac-E? Well, Prac-E is an initiative that was begun by beginning teachers for beginning teachers. We aim to support pre-service and early career educators through best-in-class digital media and in-person symposium events. I hope you like this interview, and if you like what you see, why not head over to our website at www.prace.com. Check us out, see what we're all about, and if you want to join the Prac-E community, head into our contact form on our homepage, chuck in your email, and that'll be the best way to keep in contact with me and the Prac-E team. We'll let you know all about our new blog posts, articles, and videos, and let you know when we'll be in town for the next Prac-E symposium. I hope to see you over there, but until then, let's get on with the video.
What's up, Prac-Es? It's Liam Lysiums here for another episode of Ask Prac-E Anything. On this episode, we have a very special guest. It's Amy Louise from the Australian teachertuber community. Thank you so much for coming in and sacrificing a bit of your day to come talk to us.
Thanks, Liam. I'm really excited to be here and talk about how we can help Prac students in their experience on their practicums.
Fantastic. So basically, the first question I think that would help the most is, for a beginning teacher through the lens, can you just give maybe a bit of synopsis about your experience in the teaching profession and what led you to being a teacher tuber?
Well, I guess being a beginner teacher when I first started out, or even before I actually became a teacher and I was still a uni student doing my pracs, I found that there wasn't much out there for prac students to watch other teachers or other prac students, and they didn't really have much information. So I guess helping prac students when they came through, now that I'm a more experienced teacher, from my experience when I was a prac student, I really wanted to make sure that I give every opportunity for my prac students when they come to me. So I don't really see myself as a supervising teacher when I get prac students now, because I think it should be more that we mentor and we coach prac students to becoming strong teachers rather than supervising them. And so my experience having supervising teachers and feeling really daunted when we go on our pracs kind of made me want to be a really good supervising teacher when I have prac students. Yeah. You
mentioned just before that you take on a lot of prac students at your school, and I saw a video where you had, was it Bronson, that you talked about the tips that he learned out in your prac. When you take on that role as a mentor teacher for a pre-service teacher, what are the big lessons that you're trying to impart when they come to you as a prac-E? Yeah,
so I guess when prac students come to me, first off, and as I say in the video, so if you want to check it out, it's on my channel at Amy Louise. But in that video, we talk about making sure that the prac students know what the requirements are from the university, because it's really important that the prac students know what they have to produce while they're on prac. And if they communicate that with their supervising teacher, it means that we can then tailor our coaching, I guess, to make sure that they're getting everything out of it that they need. And that's what Bronson did. And he came in early before he even started his prac, and we discussed all of the things that he needed from the experience to then put back into his assessments.
Yeah. A big question that we get a lot through our symposiums, and something that beginning teachers worry about so much, is that next step after university. I know a lot of pressure goes into the internship. It was basically like, if you don't nail this 100%, you're never going to get a job and you may as well quit the teaching profession. So when pre-service teachers are nearing the end and they want to really put their best foot forward for a potential school that might hire them, what would be your advice to someone about getting that relationship with a school for potential employment?
Yeah, so my experience in my last year of, even year and a half of uni, was really different from the majority of students going through university, because I actually applied for a program called the Teacher Education Centre of Excellence, and I was a part of that. So basically, it was an initiative to get new teachers to go and teach out west. So my first 2 years of teaching was actually in Broma, so I was out there for 2 years, and that means that my internship was actually at that school. And so that had to be a really good internship for them to actually offer me the job. So there was a little bit of pressure there. There was a lot of pressure in that program as well, because I had to make sure my GPA was high enough, that I was getting outstanding on my interview, because back then it was an interview process before you actually get offered your placements or your jobs. So for me, there was a lot of pressure, not only on my internship, but the final prac in Brisbane because I knew I was coming back to the school that I'm at now. So I did my internship in Roma, and it was an incredible experience, but I did feel the pressure while I was there to put my best foot forward, because basically I was on show and they were either going to offer me the job there and then, or they weren't. And so I was waiting for the 3 o'clock bell on the Friday of my last day on prac for them to come say, yes, you got the job, no, you don't. So I was actually permanent straight away, straight out of uni in the department. So I actually was really, really lucky, but I did make the commitment to go out west though.
You mentioned rural teaching. For beginning teachers, there's a lot about rural and remote teaching surrounding the rhetoric around graduation, and then a lot of people say that if you want a really good opportunity to get permanency, that rural teaching is, crying out for beginning teachers. But I heard, sometimes, a lot of the time, that beginning teaching, especially from someone that grew up in a metropolitan area, can be a pretty big culture shock.
Definitely.
When you were starting out your experience in Roma, what were the big culture shocks?
So look, I came from a country town originally. I grew up on a property. So coming to Brisbane was actually a big deal for me. And I had been here for nearly 10 years before I then went out to Roma. So I knew what I was in for going to a country town, although it was a lot smaller than where I actually grew up. But I knew what living rural meant. But when you get out to rural placements, community and being part of community is probably the most important thing that you do when you start teaching, because although your job is to be there and teach the kids, it's really about the relationships, not only with your students but with their families, getting involved in the community, and then just enjoying the experience. And for me, teaching rural meant that I could experiment with all of those things that I'd learned at uni. There was a lot of support out there for me, and there was a lot of opportunity for me to try out all of those things without the judgment, I guess, and without the pressure. So I actually loved teaching out west. I thought it was one of the most amazing experiences because I got the opportunity, and if I had gone straight into the city schools and started teaching, I think that the pressure would have really hit me, whereas out there was very relaxed and there wasn't the hustle and bustle of the city plus the job and everything. So it was very relaxed and got involved in the community. So I really loved it.
You mentioned that you're able to experiment with different things in the classroom when you're out and remote. I know a lot of videos from your channel talk about new technologies in the classroom, and that you're kind of the big mover and shaker for using technology for your students. But with Prac-E, we get a lot of kind of people confused about using technology in the classroom. We had a big debate in our last event about whether smartphones should be in the classroom or not. What's your view on how a beginning teacher can really properly implement ICT and what that can bring to their pedagogy?
So first and foremost, I'm a pretty techie person already. When I went out west, we had a computer lab and we had very slow internet. Our school didn't have Wi-Fi. And I had an iPad, my own iPad, that I would bring into school, and I tried everything to get the kids involved in different technologies. So I think then coming back to a Brisbane school where we went from only having a few classes in our school, and after the last 6 years at this school, we've had the growth from 3 classes being iPads to now our entire school being a one-to-one iPad, bring your own device. I'm part of the ICT committee, and I'm very much for having devices in the classroom as learning tools. I think that if you are a teacher that doesn't know how to implement them properly in the classroom and use them as learning tools, and students are consuming rather than creating, then there's an issue. I think that Prac students really need to get on board with using technology in the classroom, because that's the way of the future, and we're creating digital citizens, and students are going to grow up and use it. So if you are not using technologies in the classroom, then you're really doing a disservice to your students, because they're going to grow up in a world where one school is using technology and one school isn't. Then that school where the kids aren't digital literate are going to be way behind compared to kids at schools that are using technologies effectively, and those kids are digitally literate.
What do you think about using technology within assessment? Because At our event, we were talking about using smartphones, and they said that there was a massive us versus them mentality beforehand.
Yep.
And that, teachers had the phone bucket when the kids walked in, and if you saw a phone, it got suspended and taken away. But then they said that once they started implementing smartphones into assessment, it just broke down that barrier straight away. And once they started using mobile phones, they actually saw that some of the kids that were struggling were improving.
Well, they're engaged.
Exactly.
So I think that it depends on what they're doing on their iPads or on their phone. So for my school, for example, we've got one-to-one iPads, but we also have a bank of laptops in our classroom. And then kids go home, they're on computers or devices. It means that students can take the learning home with them. They can access any of the information at any part of the day. So a lot of the assessment, if we go back to what we're talking about with assessment, actually all of my assessment is all uploaded on an app called Shobi, and I have their assessment, their guide to making judgments. I have all of the exemplars on there. I have the sequence of learning, all the curriculum documents, so parents have access to that as well. It means it's transparent, it's open. Parents, students and teachers all have access to not only the learning materials and the assessment, but then also the grades and the feedback that I give to students. So any piece of assessment that students do, they always upload it to the app Shobi, and I assess on there, and then I can write on it. I can give voice feedback. It doesn't mean, though, that their assessment is done using an iPad. It means that they could have written something and they've taken a photo of it and then they've uploaded it so I don't have to take home a pile of paper.
Yeah.
So just because assessment is sent out that way, it creates this flipped classroom, but it doesn't mean that they have to do it on their iPads. It just creates that flipped classroom where students have the learning materials and access to the learning materials all the time. Yeah.
So on your channel, we see firsthand your support for beginning teachers and all the great advice that you give to beginning teachers. But if we had a time machine and you could see your beginning teacher version of yourself as you were embarking on your teaching career, what advice would you give her?
Probably don't be so cocky and confident. Shut up and listen. I think that we come out of uni and we're constantly rewarded. Like we do an assessment, we submit our assessment, we get our feedback because we're getting such good grades on our assessment. So we think that we're really good at teaching. Anyway, that's what happened to me because I thought I was really good. I was doing really well in all of my pracs. I was getting fantastic feedback. My GPA was amazing. And then I would go into the classroom and think that I had it all under control. And so I was quite confident. And although I really wanted to listen, I also wanted to justify why I was doing things. But I think that you just really need to take a step back, shut up and listen to what your prac teachers are doing. Make sure that you have, really thoroughly planned lessons, observe as much as you can, and don't think you know everything because there's nothing worse than getting prac students in and they're too overconfident. Although they're doing really well at uni, as I was, it doesn't mean that you have the years of experience and the things that come up every day and the troubleshooting and thinking on your feet and how to solve that problem and differentiation and knowing different students. So probably if I could give myself a little bit of feedback for what I was like, and I mean, I did listen, of course, and I was open to learning as much as I could, but I was also very confident. And I think that I probably shouldn't have been as confident because I wasn't that good. Yeah.
When I think I needed that advice a few years ago, it's scary that you were saying that because I'm just thinking in my mind, I was the exact same when I was out on prac. So I think that's some really good advice for beginning teachers. And I think
because when you are at uni, and I said this to my husband the other day because he's just about to finish his degree here actually, but I said to him, you're not going to be constantly praised all the time for all of your good work. Like he's doing really well at uni. He gets his assessments in and then he gets, all sevens and he's doing so well. I said, you're getting like that feedback every few weeks of, yes, you're awesome. Yes, you're awesome. Well, don't expect it because no one's going to walk around and tell you how awesome you are. I mean, your kids will. Your kids will tell you you're awesome. Which sometimes you just need that from them. But your principals aren't going to come in every day and go, oh, well done, or the teachers around you. It's a struggle. Like no one has enough time to constantly praise you because we're all so busy working on our own thing.
And lastly, I think when I was out on prac and I had one prac that didn't go particularly well for probably some of the reasons that you've brought up in this interview, And then I felt basically completely alone, and I felt that everything was coming in on me, and it was going back to a place where I just wasn't clicking day in, day out. It was really hard. And with Prac-E, we support beginning teachers that may be feeling the same way, that may be feeling that they're all alone in their struggles. So if you could give one message to beginning teachers that maybe need a little bit of support, that maybe are feeling a little bit all alone, and maybe are questioning whether they're a good teacher or not, what would be the one piece of advice? And if you could connect with the Prac-E community out there that you think would really hit home and support them?
Yeah, I think they're not alone. Teachers every day think the same thing. So even though teachers might be feeling like that while they're on Prac, well, guess what? It's going to happen probably at least once a term that you're going to feel like that, because there's always something that comes up that makes you question, oh, am I doing the right thing? Am I a good teacher? Could I have done that better? And actually, that's a really good practice of reflecting on your teaching and learning processes. So if you are feeling like that, maybe start thinking about all the good things that you're actually doing, and give yourself that affirmation about that you're actually doing such a good job, and the fact that you've chosen this profession and the difference that you're going to make to those students that you're going to work with every day, and you're going to show up and continually work on not only helping them learn, but your own practice to then improve them in the future.
Yeah.
So I think give yourself a break, because we all suck sometimes. We're always going to question ourselves, but that's what you need to be doing, is reflecting, talk yourself up, because you're actually probably doing a fantastic job already. Yeah.
Some great parting advice there. That's all the time we have for this episode of Ask Prac Anything. Thanks so much, Amy, for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me.
And a reminder that you can ask questions and get them asked for the next episode of Ask Prac Anything by sending a comment down below or hitting us up on any of our social media platforms. But until then, we'll see you next time.